Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you? I'm...
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of Nerdculture, and our guest on this episode of And I Quote, I should say, is a writer and podcaster from StoryComic. Please welcome Barney Smith. Barney, how are you, good sir?
Hey, how's it going, Ryan? Thanks for having me come on the show. I'm excited.
Oh, well, thank you for being with us. We do greatly appreciate it. Now, if you have any questions for Barney Smith as we go throughout the course of this episode, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Our producers are going to be keeping an eye on that as we go throughout the course of this very program. But without any further ado, Barney, I'm going to ask you this. What would you say were some of your favorite books and or writers growing up?
Oh, books and or writers. Okay, so that's a good one. So I would probably say... So here's the thing. I would probably say every time I think about my childhood and think about some of the best one, it has to be the Wuzzles. Do you remember the Wuzzles, Ryan?
I can't say that I do. It may have been a little before my time.
Maybe. Yeah. See, that was in the 80s. So it was like, it was a Saturday morning cartoon that came out, and it was about these animals that were a mixture of both. So you had Bumble Lion, who was half bumblebee and half lion, and it was in the land of Was. So it was a very exciting time. So I would probably have to think, if I had to think of somebody. Now I've been doing some research to figure out who was the creator of the Wuzzles, and I have yet to actually find out. I think it was one of those Hallmark card creations, like the same thing with Rainbow Bright and some of those of that era. But if I had to pick like a specific writer, someone who actually I like their writing and like I prefer their writing, it would probably have to be Mercer Mayer, who is also a children's book. He's the one that did all the monsters and stuff like that, and all the monster books that you recall. And he's from this neck of the woods too, Ryan. I'm here in Vermont, so he's actually retired. He's one of those guys that I actually became Facebook friends with, but I've been too shy to actually ask him questions or talk to him because he's one of those guys where I'm afraid, because he's so far out there that he will just I didn't mean to friend this guy and unfriend me. So I'm just sitting out off in the corner, just biding my time to want just ask him, hey, can I ask you some questions about all the children's books you made when you were a kid? But I seem to be heading towards more, Ryan. I seem to be heading more towards children's books. But if I had to pick an actual say comic book side of things, in comic book stuff, I kept my teeth on our early 90s X-Men. So early 90s X-Men, when there was a time when, before they actually split up and have different X-Men groups, when they actually came out with the first, from Uncanny X-Men to the X-Men, that whole era before that with Genosha and all that stuff happening there, that really kind of defined me, because the only comics I read before that as a kid were your DuckTales and things like that, when it was one of those realizations that you can have a lot of action happening. Because if you recall, Ryan, too, during that time as well was a time when, it was a time when you pretty much knew what was going to be happening, and all your comic books kind of were very serialized and they weren't extremely serious. But then when they started getting darker and darker, but that was one of those moments when I realized that you can pretty much tell any story and put an illustration towards it, and then actually, kind of it was one of those, reflective moments where I realized that you can pretty much make a comic book about anything. So, yeah.
Wow, goodness. All right. I like it. I mean, I grew up, I remember watching reruns of DuckTales. I remember watching DuckTales Treasure of the Lost Lamp, which was the movie based off the animated series. And the theme song is quite catchy. And I grew up in the 90s, so the X-Men cartoon was huge for me. Huge. That was one of my first entries into the Marvel universe because I didn't know I didn't know anything about, the comics or these characters. But when you see these animated shows, that's a great entry point for new fans to learn about these characters. So I'm all for you, man, with the X-Men. I love the X-Men. Love, love, love the X-Men. I like a lot of the movies. I like the original 90s animated series. And even what was it? The one that came out after that was X-Men Evolution, which was kind of a rebooted series in the late 90s. That was good. I thought that was good.
Right. That was good. Then I remember in 2000, I was in the Peace Corps during in 2000, and I was in Niger, West Africa when that came out. And I remember my mother sent me care packages, and one of them was the cover of Entertainment Weekly, where it actually had the first X-Men movie thing on there. And seeing that just blew my mind, because thinking back is like, when you're reading comic books before they come out before they came out with the movies, you think there's no way they're going to make a movie about this. There's no way they're going to do this. And and honestly rarely did you see movies that actually were actually there was a lot of like superhero movie apologists before the MCU really came out. There's a lot of them said, well, you know what? It's just not the same as the book because they can't do it. Like, there's a lot of people that were just like, and then my whole thought was like, why can't you do that? Why can't you, like when the first X-Men movie came out, I was like, why can't they look like the comic books? And it wasn't until it was, with Feige coming out and actually deciding, you know what, we're going to make our superhero movies like the comic books. And we're used to it now because, it's like the Iron Man came out, in 2008? I mean, so we're sitting on 15 years later, we've kind of been inundated with superhero comic book movies now that we just kind of stopped seeing them as being innovative as they were so long ago. But it reminds me, hey, see, good find. And it can, it kind of reminds me that how much we've kind of grown into the idea of comic books being something separate. And I had this conversation, Ryan. I'm curious of what your input is, or any of your audience inputs on this. Is, one piece of feedback I give folks that are always asking about comic books, and this is something that it's a realization over the years, is that comic books are a medium, not a genre. So, meaning that comic books themselves, when I've talked to people like, in the indie comic worlds or something like that, they'd be like, I have this horror comic, but nobody seems to be buying it. And my question is like, well, who's your audience? She's like, well, other comic book readers. Like, no, your audience is horror. People who like horror. Go and take your comic book and connect to people that love horror movies or read horror books. Same thing with sci-fi. Same thing with fantasy. When people are making a fantasy comic, and the question is like, don't sell it to the indie comic book scene. Is great at supporting each other with advice and cheering on, but don't expect them to be the ones to open up their wallets. Who needs to open up your wallets are the people that are fan of that genre. And one idea is when people talking about superhero comics. So I make a superhero comic book. I'm like, okay, where are you selling it? Well, I'm going to other, indie comic folks. I'm like, you're going to the people that make the comics. You're not going to the people that buy the comics. And then the other question is like, and we do this, we do this on a lot of that I know a lot of indie comics and people that make superhero comics will do. They'll go to their local, there's obviously, you go to the comic cons and comic conventions and stuff. But one idea as well is if your neighborhood has a local movie theater and you see there's a new a superhero movie coming out, go to the movie theater owner and say, "Hey, I make indie comics, superhero comics. Can I set up a table just to let people know?" It's like, so that's and that's part of it. I'm curious, Ron, of what your impression is on really thinking about comic books as a medium and not a genre.
Well, first of all, but real quick, before I get to that, because I do want to respect and answer your question as best I can. So it's great that you brought up the first 2000s X-Men directed by Bryan Singer, because when I heard that movie was coming out, as someone who grew up in the 90s watching the animated series, I thought, you're kidding me, right? Like, is this really, like, are they really going to do this? Because that's a huge risk,
Right.
right? Because you have, like, these big name characters from this big name property that was so huge, at least for me in the 90s. I know the comics have been around a lot longer than that,
Right.
but that was one of our entry points. And when the film came out, obviously, I think I speak for everybody when we saw that film 23 years ago. That's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun. But that movie is freaking amazing, and it's one of the two or three foundations for the comic book movies that we have today. So thank you, X-Men. You did it very well. And I don't care what anyone says, the first film is still good, still holds up. I love it to pieces. I can rewatch it over and over again. But to answer the question, yes, comic books are a medium, because when somebody adapts, and I've had this discussion with a few of my friends, maybe you can relate to this. So when they adapted, and this is going to X-Men, right? So X-Men attempted, not once, but twice, to adapt the Dark Phoenix storyline in a live action format. In 2006's X-Men 3: The Last Stand, and then they did it again in 2018, 2019, with X-Men Dark Phoenix. Forgive me if I'm misrepresenting the release date. But they failed twice.
Yeah.
But as a movie fan, I wasn't bothered by it, really. Well, Dark Phoenix I was bothered by, because X-Men Dark Phoenix is just, it's not good. All right.
Right.
It was a very sour note to go out on for that franchise, because they did so well in the first two. And I thought X-Men Apocalypse was fine. It's not great, I know that, but it's fine. I enjoy it. Get out of here. But when you adapt a storyline of that epic proportion, it's going to be very hard to translate that from a comic book to a movie screen. And the other thing is, I totally agree that comic books are a medium, because there's a difference between a movie and a TV series. Those are two separate mediums, just like comic books and movies are two completely different mediums. Animated movies are different from live action movies, right? Those are two very different mediums. So you have different ways of translating these stories into different formats. And I don't mind people who attempt to adapt these stories in different formats, because then you're kind of picking and choosing, and you give the audience members different flavors. And I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, and when I go into a comic movie, I'm not expecting word for word, panel for panel to be translated onto a movie screen, because that's just not possible in a 2-hour movie. You just can't do it. Most comic books. I mean, I have graphic novels here in my man cave, if you want to call it that, nerd cave. I don't know. You go with it what you will. I have graphic novels that tell complete stories. Some of them are standalones, others are volumes, because volumes are they're different things. But there's 100, 200, 300 pages in certain graphic novels, I want to say, because with all due respect, original issues of comic books are like what, 20, 24, 30 pages. Big difference. So I'm not I just read, this is a true story. I read this just a little while ago. I read the graphic novel of Captain America the Winter Soldier, and I watched the movie 10 years before that in 2014 when Captain America the Winter Soldier came out. And I think, to me, it's one of the best MCU solo movies ever made. Quite frankly, I think it's probably the number one. But hey, if you want to debate that, drop it in the comments. But I can tell the difference between the movie and the graphic novel. And both the graphic novel and the movie work so well, but for different reasons.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you. Comic books are one medium, whereas movies are another. TV series are another. Animation, I should say, because animation's a whole different ball game. That's a whole different medium.
So, let me tell you one of my I gotta tell you one of my pet peeves. I gotta tell you one of my pet peeves, Ryan. And this comes down to the the idea of, so my favorite, so I'm going to be very specific with your audience on this. It's like, I'm referring to Marvel comic canon circa 1991. Okay, I got to be clear on that, because I loved when I was in the early 90s. Remember when they had series 1, series 2, series 3 Marvel collectible cards. So on the back, they showed the stats of 1 through 7, of intelligence, strength, speed, all this stuff. And so according to Marvel Comics canon circa 1991, that, for instance, the strongest had a 7 in strength. A 7 in strength was the Incredible Hulk. He was the strongest superhero in Marvel Comics in 1991. The fastest Marvel character, according to Marvel Comics in 1991, is, you want to take a guess, Ryan, on who that is?
Oh gosh, man, you put me on the spot. Let's see. You mentioned
So that's what I get. You put me on the spot by just throwing those questions at me like the
Uh,
first 30 seconds. So I gotta.
well,
see
listen, we're all here to have a friendly neighborhood conversation. We're here to have fun. We hope you, who may be watching or listening to this episode of And I Quote with our guest, Barney Smith, here on the show, are enjoying this. And if you are, please like and share this video with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions for Barney, or even myself, because clearly he's got questions for me, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. I'm more than happy to hear from you. But to answer that question, I'm going to say Cyclops.
The fastest?
Oh, the fastest. I thought you said strongest. I'm sorry.
No.
Let's see. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Fastest. I'm gonna say Quicksilver.
No, people, though, Quicksilver is pretty fast, but the Silver Surfer, according to Marvel canon, Silver Surfer is the fastest.
I remember.
So,
yeah.
Yep. And so here's the thing. So with that in there, so basically with the statistics and stuff like that, they're talking about who the smartest person in Marvel Comics. MCU is probably Shuri if you want to be specific, but I'm talking about so any of your readers, I'm just talking specifically about circa 1991 Marvel Comics. So circa 1991 Marvel Comics, the objectively smartest superhero in Marvel Comics at the time is Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. He's the only one with a 7 in intelligence. The only supervillain with a 7 in intelligence is Doctor Doom. So, I think Tony Stark's got a 5 in intelligence, but keeping in mind, like the average number is 2, is like an average intelligence is 2. So if you're thinking about the fact that Tony Stark is 2.5 times smarter than your average person, says a lot. Spider-Man, I think, had a 4 or 5. So there was giant. You thinking about the fact of like some epic folks, like demigods. Some of them might have a 6 or so. I think the Watcher has a 6, but there's only one person who has a 7 in intelligence, and that's Reed Richards. So here's my beef, Ryan. Here's my beef when it comes to comic books. So comic books, and you think about that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, when he wrote his entire series of Sherlock Holmes, not one book do you have an inner monologue of what's going in through Sherlock Holmes' head, because Sherlock Holmes, it's all through Watson. It's all through the perception of what Watson thinks is happening and stuff like that. It's never through Sherlock Holmes. There's never any inner monologue through what's going on through Sherlock Holmes. Because the reason why, Ryan, is because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle created a character who's smarter than him. He doesn't know what's going through the mind of Sherlock Holmes. Even the author, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, doesn't know what Sherlock Holmes is thinking. He knows the result of that. The best thing about when you're writing mysteries is you already know the answer at the end. You already know who did it, all that stuff. So what you're able to do is put together how that stuff happens. So he can talk about the recipe, like where, Sherlock Holmes says, well, I saw that you did this and you saw you did that, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. But you basically see the recipe, but you don't understand the mind behind how you created the recipe. So this is my bugaboo. This is my thing that I don't like about comic books, this particular spot is who is writing who's writing the Fantastic Four? It is somebody who's probably in their 30s, in their 20s, in their 40s, somebody with an average or maybe above average intelligence. Let's say talking the Marvel, you might have a 3 in intelligence, which you're above average thought because you're a very creative person who's doing the writing. There is no way, and this is the thing that that's always bugged me, that in order to understand somebody with a 7 in intelligence is, according to Marvel Comics canon, the smartest person in the world, the smartest person in the universe. Do not do thought bubbles. Do not do inner monologue for Reed Richards, because there is no way a writer should understand what Reed Richards is thinking. He could be thinking in binary code for as far as we know. He could be thinking in like such different languages or prospects of like algebraic code mixed in with like 5 different languages, you thinking about what languages used best to describe with a thought process. This is the most intelligent person in the world. Do not, please, for anybody that's listening that's actually writing, for those that are actually doing their own indie comics, and you're talking about this is the smartest person in the world there, don't do inner monologue. You don't, if you're saying this is the smartest person in the world, keep that a mystery. Take what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle did. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle never did inner monologue for the smartest person in the universe he created. It was all through observation of what this. How powerful would that be, Ryan, if you're thinking about the fact that in a Fantastic Four comics from now on, that they actually have people react to what Reed Richards does and have no idea what Reed Richards is thinking. So that would actually create the mystery. It's the same thing about, put it this way, thinking about the Incredible Hulk being the smartest man and the strongest. The Incredible Hulk is the strongest person. He lifts mountains. How would it look to actually where you actually do a deep dive, and every time the Incredible Hulk picked up something, you actually honed in on his muscles and watched his muscles work and watch the strain of the cellular growth. You take away the mystery of why he's so strong. So this is the smartest man in the world. We shouldn't be knowing what he's thinking. That's my little piece. So what are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Well, I would say welcome to Barney Smith's complaints about Marvel circa 1991 with trading cards. But I would say that you make very good points, and I completely understand where you're coming from. And it's good advice for what are known as writers and some other people who are trying to put together stories with characters and keep them interesting by not revealing so many layers too quickly. Let them, let the reader or the person who's reading the story, just let them figure it out for themselves. Don't give them all the answers at once. So keep things a mystery. And heck, I like the genre of mystery anyway. So I respect that. That's good stuff. I mean, my gosh, I feel like I just walked into a lecture hall back in college. But not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I learned a lot of good things when I was in college during my film courses. So there you go. With that being said, good heavens. So we know the things you like and the things you don't like when it comes to Marvel Comics. But outside of that, I am curious. So what would you say are some of your favorite movies, past or present?
Oh, okay. So do you know every time, and I'm gonna tip my hat, so maybe I shouldn't be telling you this, because when they actually have like your security questions, like what's your favorite movie, and you type that in. So I won't say what my favorite movies I use as my security answer, but I would say movies that actually surprisingly touch me in a way that I wasn't expecting, like when you end up and I remember in college, the one movie I watched that I actually just like sobbed at was Babe, the movie about the talking pig.
Yeah.
Man,
James Cromwell.
Yes, man. And I think it's because it was I gave myself permission to just like bawl my eyes out when I watched that last scene where he goes, that'll do, pig. It's like, it's just, that was definitely like one of those movies that just really, like, when I think about that. And if I had to think about, as of recent, like a movie that that really um was good. I love watching because a I have 3 kids. I got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, 2 daughters, and then I have a 3-year-old son. When I watch movies where I can see actually watching it through the eyes of my girls means a lot to me as a dad. Um, seeing movies where like you have like really strong female figures. Um, when I remember when I saw my um at that time when the first Wonder Woman movie came out and watching my girls watch Wonder movie and just seeing them just in awe and just watching them just stare at the screen to see somebody that they can relate to. Same thing with Captain Marvel, like the messages behind it, the Miss Marvel. Um, She-Hulk was amazing. She-Hulk was so fun. That was a fun, and I like that because of the whole John Byrne-esque breaking the fourth wall situation was fun to watch that. And I get really campy when I watch the last scene of that the last battle in the Infinity War, when all the female superheroes got together and helped Peter Parker go through that. That was amazing too. It's we don't get enough positive messaging out there, and I just love seeing movies that actually have a really good positive message to it, um, and 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 really, hammering home that um, comics are for everyone, and it's good, and it's good to have people see people that remind them of themselves in comic books and then in movies as well. Um, and yeah, I think what it's and I would say too is that some really good go-to classic movies that I'll watch on the side. So I have here, as if people would see, I actually have 3 screens right here in front of me. I got 3 computer screens, and and then I have the TV over here that's connected to the Roku box, and I will sometimes I'll watch a movie in the background just to just to play. My go-to movies that I'll just play in the background are gonna be any of the John Hughes movies that are just really good feel-good movies that are just full of nostalgia, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and and Home Alone. Some of those movies that are just good to just sit back and just watch as well. Yeah, Breakfast Club, and those are fun to just have playing in the background for me as well. And it's good. So when you're working, is also you interviewing some creatives and stuff like that. Is that it's good to have noise in the background that actually creates some reminiscence and memories to allow you to concentrate on doing your work at hand. And that's usually what I would end up doing. And if I do sit down and watch movies with my kiddos, we've been on a really we've been on a really big kick of watching those Miyazaki films. Watching Spirited Away, we just watched Kiki's Delivery Service, and watching some of those movies as well. I think they're still a little too young for Princess Mononoke, but that's on the list as well. But yeah, all over the place, Ryan. See, see your
It's a nice menu. My gosh, there's some good options there. I have a somewhat similar story to yours, as you mentioned one of those films earlier concerning Wonder Woman. I took my niece to see Wonder Woman. That was the first time she and I went to a movie together, and she was watching Wonder Woman, and she was enjoying it. She was enjoying it. I could tell. I could just tell. And she was like, kind of smiling at certain parts, and she was just having a good time. She was just having a good time. And then when the movie was over, I took a picture of her in front of the poster. I took a picture of her where she was wearing her Wonder Woman shirt that day. I got her the the DC Superhero Kids
Mhm.
Wonder
Oh,
Woman
yep.
shirt. Before we a couple weeks before we went out and saw the film. and she enjoyed it. She liked it. And because of that, she and both her and my nephew like comic books. So they like comic books because of me, not because of their
See,
daddy, not because of the mom. No, the uncle did his job. So my niece, my nephew, if you're watching or listening to this, I love you. You're great. And keep reading comic books, because I'm telling you, life's better when you're reading, my friends. Life's better when you're reading. That's just a fact.
I told I have my nieces and nephews too, and I remind my nieces and nephews, being me also being kind of the quote unquote fun uncle. I said, you realize though, if we were in and I said this, you realize if we were like in like a Chinese samurai movie, it would be my job to teach you kung fu, because that's always the uncle. It's always the uncle is the one that teaches it teaches their nieces and nephews on the art, the mystic art of whatever it is. It's never, so it's always, the parents are always like, no, don't listen to your uncle. Like, it's always, the uncles are the mysterious ones. We're the ones that actually hold the secrets to open up like other worlds of things about, you didn't know this about your family, but we're actually like a family of werewolves. So we're a family of magicians, or we're the family of that came from the stars. It's always the uncle that is the one that kind of gives out that secret. We're always the Joseph if you pick a family member, it's always in the Joseph Campbell and like a mysterious stranger. It's always the uncle that shows up. So it's like, your family is away. And and it's always the uncle that shows up with the mysterious briefcase wearing the top hat, or the uncle that shows up in the beat up pickup truck, or there's always something about the uncle is the one that actually starts the adventure. So see, Ryan, you're right, man. See, there's a lot of uncle responsibilities that we got to embrace. See,
I would venture to say so. And also there's this.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I mean, yeah, this is the way. Just keep on going, brothers and sisters. But anyhow, once again, we are here with Barney Smith here on this episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions for Barney or even myself, because I've been thrown a curveball or two, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to take those as they come in respectively. And if you're watching this live or on the replay, thank you for being here. We do greatly appreciate that. With that being said, what would you say are some of the biggest rewards, in your opinion, about being a writer?
I think some of the biggest rewards of there is basically creating worlds. I mean, there's the world building aspect of it is immense. The ability to actually, as well as is telling a story that people can engage with, and telling a story that people can appreciate. And one of the biggest rewards I would say also too as a writer is, I think just the art of creating is pretty fun, especially this day and age, Ryan, where if you talk to somebody and say 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 years ago, being a writer, being a writer and actually publishing work was really hard to do. But the democratization of creativity, and it really is a democratization of creativity, because 20 years ago, you could make a role-playing game, or you could write a book, or you could make a comic, and nobody was going to see it. It was really hard to go out there and actually like go ahead and print it. So the idea of the fact that if you have a story to tell, you have the ability to be able to tell that story. And it is that democratization of the creativity piece that's just made it so easy to do. I remember, growing up, having a lot of stories to tell and writing some books that have sat in binders, and now being able to actually like get them produced. I mean, as you mentioned, I've published 3 graphic novels, and I've got 2 illustrated joke books that I've been able to put together as well so far. And the ability to know that I can, the ability that I actually have that ability to do that at a reasonable cost, and being able to tell my story and actually reach out and work with a lot of people about it is rewarding. and it's also rewarding. The part about writing and telling a story, the rewarding part about it, another rewarding part about it is that you're able to connect with like-minded people. And and I'm sure after this conversation, Ryan, you're going to say, "Wow, Barney loves to go on tangents." So here's another one I'm going to walk down with you. Here's that that you think about the fact that people always are pining on the fact that the Rotary clubs, the Boy Scouts, there's all these like groups of people like are falling apart. Like there's not many, and the reason behind that is that because it's so much easier now with the advent of the internet to connect with like-minded people. You don't have to sacrifice your fact of like, well, I know you like comic books, but you like this type and I like that type. So, but you can actually reach out and find specific people who like a very specific show or movie, and you can and pine about that. There is a rabid Danny Phantom cartoon base of people that love to talk just about one cartoon that was canceled 8 years ago. And so we're not stuck with the benefit of geographic, that having something in common with having someone that with specific geographic abilities. Now you can actually reach out across the world with people that actually like or interested the same thing. And that also makes it a lot easier for you to, as a writer, to find people to critique and support your writing in a way that is both advantageous and beneficial and compassionate at the same time. So that's the other benefit of of being a writer and writing, is that you're able to connect with like-minded people that can help you out a lot too. Yeah.
So in a way, it's like connecting with your tribe. I found my people. So the force is strong with this one. Clearly, the force has been strong with Barney Smith since the day he was born. But he is too old to begin the training. But anyhow, no, he's never too old. But Mike, the flip side of the coin, though, what are some of the biggest challenges about being a writer?
I think it's just, there's a lot of distraction and there's a lot of noise, and that you it, it's and here's the point too, is also I would say the fear of failure, and being able to embrace failure is going to be really important. We always learn from our mistakes and we do from our successes. And some of the best tips that I've heard from writers is say, just write, just start writing. You can't write a book. You can't write anything without actually starting to write in the first place. And the other thing about it too, is it's the flip side of the democratization of creativity is also the absolute trying to stay above the noise on being able to hear that. And the best advice I heard anybody about how to get your stuff out there is join the two groups. One, you want to join the group that actually is also writers. You can talk about as in their best place to help support your stuff. But once you have something together, then what you should be able to do is then connect to people who like that genre of work, whether it be children's books, horror, sci-fi. And there I can plug a few groups. It's like, I guarantee no matter what state you're in, there is a league of blank writers, the League of Massachusetts writers, the League of Illinois writers, the League of Vermont writers. There is a league of writers that are work there. If you're into comic books, there's always a group of Facebook is a great place to find people to help support you for any of that, whether it be indie comics, horror comics, sci-fi comics, all that stuff. Connect with those people. But here's the thing, don't sell your books to them. That is not the place to sell your books. That is a place for you to get advice, get help on, hey, can you check out my readers? There's tons of people that are going to give you advice. There's great podcasts out there that'll be able to give you great advice. If there's a really cool group for those that are interested in making kids comics, it's called Kids Comic Unite. It's a great place to connect with folks that are able to help you out with middle-age grade comic books. great opportunity, and it's actually run by some pretty well-known agents, literally literal. What am I saying? Literary.
I believe it's literary agents.
Literary. There it is. There you go. Literary agents. So there's always places that you're able to connect with, but making a pretty darn good difference between you're not there to sell books unless you're actually going to a place that actually is interested in that. That's why you want to go to a place that can provide you with some feedback and advice and support on that. So that's the challenge, I would say, with writing these days, is that it takes, and what there's so it was like a Yogi Berra quote, like it takes a lot of years to be an overnight sensation. So it's it's one of those things. And do it for the right reasons. Do it because you want to make sure people read your stories. Don't do it because you think you're going to be rich, because everybody has heard those stories about the really famous Marvel or DC illustrator that is sending out a GoFundMe page because he's having liver failure because he doesn't have health insurance. So the point of it being is follow your dreams but pay your bills, basically.
Talk about bringing balance to the force with this episode of And I Quote with our guest, Barney Smith. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you have any questions for Barney Smith, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. If you were joining us live or on the replay, thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate it. My goodness. I should have titled this episode Random Tangents or Advice Giving with Barney Smith. Good Lord, man. But hey, listen, that's neither here nor there. We're just here to have fun. So I want to share something with you here, if I may. And if you're allowed to talk about this, that's great. And if not, let me know. I can immediately just take it down. Dad jokes. I'm curious. I wonder what this is about. And how did this idea come about? Oh, wait, I know, because it's in the title. And you also have a coffee mug that says King of Dad Jokes. So I'm curious, how did this all come about? And why would you crown yourself as the cream of the crop of all dad jokes? Barney, tell us about this one.
Well, so basically it's like, it all started off in, I'd say 2020. As everybody remembers, 2020, it seemed like a long time ago, but it was kind of a hard time to be around, like, because you had COVID-19. We had here in the United States, we had an election season happening. We had Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate. There was people that were being attacked for the color of their skin, and so I decided to do in my own little neck of, and here's the other thing too, and that this actually is something that actually was having people kind of forgot about. Like, it was super easy to accidentally get into a fight in 2020. Like, it was, we think about the fact that, like, it's only 2023, but there's been a lot of advent, like technology on being able to block people or curate your own news feeds to the point where it actually is. It's harder now in 2023 than it was in 2020 to get in a fight. In 2020, you stumbled into fights all the time. Like, someone said, "Oh, the sunset's beautiful," and then someone responded, "That's because of air pollution. You like it because you like air pollution." I'm like, no, that's not true at all. Or someone's like, "I got a puppy today." Oh, they come from puppy mills. Puppy mills are bad. Like, it was just, you could just accidentally get in a fight anytime in 2020. So what I was able to do is actually so I decided to be very cognizant to say, in my neck of the woods here on the internet, I'm just going to make a nice, safe place. So what I did, I used to post dad jokes, once every couple of weeks, but I decided to go down on it and just say, I'm just going to make dad jokes every day. So first there was like the low hanging fruit dad jokes of, for instance, like, why couldn't the pony talk? He was a little horse. Yeah, like those easy ones that were like very simple ones, like, the most gullible chemical element is easily lead. These are the ones that were just super easy that you could just pick from the low-hanging fruits that you can find on the internet all the time. So basically what happened, Ryan, is that I had enough people say, you should put these in a book. So I said, you know what? Yeah, why not? So there's three things, I would say three things, Ryan, that makes my book unique to other dad joke books. The first thing about my book is that it actually is, it's the only one that's in full color. It's a full color book. So every single page is colored, and every single page actually has, and all the jokes themselves. So first of all, it's fully colored. The second thing about my book is, uh, you know, you should really try archery while blindfolded. You don't know what you're missing. And these other ones here, it's that a lot of, every time you buy a dad joke book, if you look for dad joke books anywhere else, what you're going to end up finding is there's going to be some jokes in here that are there's going to be some jokes in a dad joke book that's going to be a little bit, misogynistic or racist, or ones that are that insult an entire ethnic or cultural group. So here's the thing, Ryan, is that I truly believe that humor should be universal, and I truly believe that it's not funny to disparage an entire group of people just to try to make a cheap laugh, when it's so much easier to make a cheap laugh on doing some puns on something, or observational humor is some of the best and richest jokes that you can find. And so, yeah, so some of those other jokes you're going to find. So this book here is 100% safe for anyone. As I say, I got a 6-year-old. She takes a joke book to first grade, completely safe. The teachers love it. There's nothing bad about the book. My brother works at a stone quarry. He's able to have that joke book with him, and some of his mans are sitting there laughing at the book as well, because some of the jokes are funny too, but completely safe. My mother is a minister at her at her hometown, and she has a book at church, and it's completely fine. There's nothing in here that's offensive at all, but it's all really good, really good, like just good play on word puns. I started a boating business in my attic. The sales are going through the roof. Like, these are the ones that are just made for, like, I installed a skylight in my apartment. The people who live above me are furious. So these are all jokes that are just made to actually be completely fine, fun. The other thing about this that's a little unique about my book as well is about 5% of the jokes in there I actually made up. So completely new, completely from the pun perspective. I'm not an overly brilliant man. This is not about, it's if you're just making puns or play on words, that doesn't involve a highly intelligent level. It's something anybody can do. But since I've been around puns and jokes for so long, that just kind of comes a little bit natural. And some of them were, and I got to tell you this one story, which is really fun, Ryan. I actually ended up inventing a joke that I've seen in the wild since I've been here. Is back in 2020, I was bringing my daughter to school one morning, and I live in Vermont, so it's not rare to see deer, but it's rare enough where you'd comment on it like, oh, that was cool, I saw a deer. After coming back home, I came back home and I told my wife, I said, hey, you know what? I saw a deer on the way to school today. And she looked at me serious. She said, how do you know it was going to school? And I looked at her like, that that's really funny. Like, and so I actually tweaked it and put it in it was one of my daily jokes. I tweaked it, and I've seen that in the wild, which is really fun. And to her credit, I think she means, how do you know the deer was actually going to going to the kids' school? Maybe was going into the yard. But the impetus of the joke makes it sound like the deer was going to deer school or something like that. So it's really fun seeing that joke in the wild. And the fourth thing that makes my book unique compared to other dad joke books is I listen to a lot of old timey radio programs. I love old timey radios, like the old, Burns and Allen's, like George Burns and Gracie Allen, Groucho Marx, the old jokes of Jack Benny. Some of these jokes are hilarious. And I've been able to also just kind of like rehash some of those jokes as well. I'll give you an example. Is like one of them, for instance, I was able to bring back from the 1930s that I was able to brush off a bit and share it for a modern audience. And this was from a Charlie McCarthy sketch that he had, and how the joke went was, let me just find it right now. It was, where was it? I should have had this all queued up. Oh, here it is. So this was a rehash joke from Charlie McCarthy joke. He said, I told my wife when I was in my 20s I was unbelievably handsome. She responded, "You're right. I don't believe it." So bringing that joke back, Ryan, bringing it back for everybody to see. So that's the other cool thing about the book itself, is that it's purely, it's people say it's like purely corny for the sake of being corny. And that's one of the aspects that I love about being able to do with this book is creating this purely fun thing. And as I mentioned too, is like, so the sequel Dadder Jokes is available now on Kickstarter. So for those that want to see, you can look up Dadder Jokes, because it's a sequel to Dad Jokes, obviously Dadder Jokes. You can find it on Kickstarter. Happy to say that we've already reached our funding goal, so it's being made. So those that like dad jokes, you can actually check out the link, and check it out. You can also find it at storycomic.com. There's a button right there. It's the best price you're going to find right now, because after it's all published and stuff, it's going to be available through Amazon and Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. But you get it for a really good price, and I can sign it if you want me to. The other cool thing, we have some really cool Kickstarter exclusives too. Some of them I actually have there as an add-on is some dad joke bookmarks. And the dad joke bookmarks look very kind of fancy, like almost like it almost looks like a Bible verse or something on there, because it's a picture of a forest and it's written in cursive. No, those are all just corny dad jokes. From a distance, you think it's a really pretty bookmark. And that's the other fun thing about it. As we unlock some of my stretch goals, it'll just enhance the whole thing. And I can promise you, anybody that buys these books, you will win presents. You will not, I won't give you presents. I mean, like, if you're buying this for a loved one or a coworker or somebody, and they love dad jokes, you will win the gift. Like, you will win the points, like, wow, you know what? Oh, thank you for the blender. But like, they'll say, really, this was probably the best present I had. These books are hilarious. So you will win, the gift giving contest for anybody that is secretly wanting to get the best present for their loved ones or their friends. I would tell you, objectively speaking, if I didn't make this book, I would love to get this as a present. How's that?
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations on that, and congratulations on the sequel, Dadder Jokes. I mean, it's a great sequel title. I think that works. I think that works really well. It's gravy. So that's great stuff, man. It really is. So something else I'd like to, and once again, we are here with the incredible Barney Smith on this episode, I should say, of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for this esteemed gentleman here, please let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. You want to throw something my way? Throw me a curveball once in a while? Hey, go right ahead, because we're here to have a good time and have friendly neighborhood conversations. So, and it's a community. So there you go. We rise each other up, because rising tide lifts all ships, and indie supports indie. Now, something else I'd like to share with you for just a moment here. This one, Lion and Dove. I'm curious. Right. How did this all come about?
So, I'll give you the long story short. So basically, I graduated from art school in 98, went into the Peace Corps, fell in love with working overseas. Then from there, I went into, then I worked for like emergency relief organizations, international emergency relief organizations like Doctors Without Borders and Save the Children, those kind of places. I was doing that for about 15 years. And then I ended up, my last mission, I was in Libya during the revolution. I was in Zimbabwe during the cholera outbreak. I was in Pakistan after the earthquake. So I was all over the place. And my last mission I was in Nigeria, working in an urban maternity healthcare clinic. And that's where I met my wife. So, I mean, Ryan, it's the same story. Everybody's heard it a million times. Slightly overweight Vermont cartoonist marries Nigerian runway model. I mean, it's the same old, same old. I mean, it's the same story. People have heard it a million times. But basically, we are basically a living and breathing 90s sitcom. Because you watch those 90s sitcoms, like there's nowhere that slightly overweight, goofy guy would marry that beautiful woman. No, this is true. Like this actually, it happens, and this is a real life example that it did happen. And it's like the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when they says, what do you find interesting in him? And Jessica was like, he makes me laugh. So beauty fades, intelligence can get marred, but you know what? Humor is everlasting. If you can make your partner laugh, that is what you need to do to make sure you have a lasting relationship. So what I did is I actually made my relation with my wife is it's in volume 2 is coming out soon as well, because that's volume 1 that I have that I basically what I did is it is a sitcom version of my my ongoing marriage. So we've been married for 11 years now. So we've been going on. And the kicker is that every time he has a 90-day fiance thing, like, 90-day fiance, my wife and I, we dated for 30 days. And we got married after, because, I married up, Ryan. I married quick because I knew if I did it any longer, she was finding out how much of a goofball I was. There is no way I would have landed that. So I had to there's no way I could keep this facade of cool guy thing. Like I was pretending I was so cool. I'm not cool. I'm not cool at all. And so I can only keep that up for 30 days. So even being 11 years later, once in a while, like we're sitting there, I'm not talking. I was like, why? Like, what was wrong with you? Why did you like? I wouldn't have married me. I mean, there's no way, but everybody understands why I married you. I mean, because you're brilliant, you're smart, you're beautiful. I mean, she's like, she has like 3 businesses she's doing. She's a go-getter. She does all kinds of stuff. She has a YouTube channel where she actually has almost 6,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel. Like she is like, yeah. So she's like, I mean, she's a literal like a sensation, and like, and that's the thing. Like I gotta keep her laughing. And so what I did is making sure that I have to, I kept that going. So I did that as a reoccurring, a series. It's a serial called Lion and Dove. So it's easier to make me because so it's about the intercultural, the continuing saga of intercultural marriage. So where we can play on the idea of what it's like to marry someone from a different culture. So instead of it being about a Nigerian and someone from a Vermonter or someone from Vermont, making it more specific so that other people can kind of relate to it, for those that might be married someone from a different culture as well. So that's I've had so much fun putting that story together. I have so much fun illustrating it. I have so much fun scripting that out. And definitely a good read. And I also was able to put on there also on the Kickstarter, because some people asked me about the other books that I made. So I did make an add-on for those that are interested. I have limited, you can buy them online if you want to, but I have ones that are actually here that so I have 2 other graphic novels as well. I'm putting together as a bundle, Ryan. So that adds up to 630 pages of comics for a mere $15 to get that. I should be paying more. I know, Ryan. I get that look a lot. Like, why were you only doing $15 for that? It's because I want more people to read these. And for the PDF version as well, it's I think it's $5 for 630 pages, and that's on the add-on. So so there you go.
Yes! That's awesome!
I mean, everything that you just shared with us, and everything that the love of your life is doing with running 3 businesses, running a YouTube channel that's got 6K subscribers. Hey, we're this close to 1,000. So if you want us to reach 1,000, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, if you know what I'm saying. So that's awesome sauce, man. Congrats. That is yowza. It's fantastic.
And
stuff.
I just subscribed to your channel, and I thought I already did, but I didn't. But I did anyway. It might have been my other account because I have like 3 YouTube accounts.
That's okay.
I'm hitting them all up for you.
Thank you. Well, I greatly appreciate that. And whoever is watching or listening to this, we appreciate you for doing the same and being here with us on this episode. And I quote with the incredible, marvelous Barney Smith, I should say, on this episode of And I Quote. Now, are there any special memories for you from being at conventions or other events, whether you were there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
Yes, I remember. So it's a very special memory that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's this. I had a there's a here in Vermont. There's a down in New Hampshire. A friend of mine started a thing called the Little Giant Comic Con. Little Giant Con. And Little Giant, his name's Jason Brick, I think his name is. And he did old school comics, but because it was really new and he didn't have a lot of vendors, I said, hey, can I? So I didn't sell anything that did, because nobody's interested in buying a comic book on the saga of that's a continuing saga of intercultural marriage or anything like that. They were there to look at the comic books because it was like a real like 1980s old school comic thing. So no, he's always proud of the fact that there's no fake Legos there. No, you can't buy root beer there. You can't do any of that stuff. It's all it's just all guys that it was just all old comic books or comic books. And I remember, so I went there. So I always give myself a little bit of spending money for change and stuff like that. So I had a couple $100 on me, and I was walking through there before the whole thing kind of opened up, because, as a vendor, you can kind of walk around and chat with other vendors. And I saw comic books that I never thought I'd see, like Golden Age comics, like the first appearance of Wonder Woman, like all these ones there. And I remember, so these people were just selling these comics that were actually like, and I remember seeing this. I remember seeing issue number 1 of the Incredible Hulk. Issue number 1 of the Incredible Hulk, slabbed, and it actually had, and it was graded like 2.3. I'm like, hey, you know what? It's graded a 2.3. I got a couple $100 on me. You know what? I might as well get something, even though it's like I've graded a 2. It'd be a good thing to get. So, so I kind of asked the guy, I said, hey, how much is that? 2.3 slabbed first issue of Incredible Hulk, and he pulled up his Excel sheet and he got on his computer. And mind you, the price he gave me is fair market value. So it wasn't, and he typed up, he's like, that's 11,000. I'm like, yeah, never mind. I can't afford it. So I went ahead and I bought like issue number 1 of Saga, which was, at the time it was a 9.8 and it was graded a 9.8, and I spent $100 on that, which was, I think it was a better investment for $100 than anything else. But it was so fun seeing, like, it was a comic convention, but it was more like a museum, because you saw things you never thought you would see in the wild that you're able to see. I saw so many, basically, if you remember the Overstreet price guide, where they always had like, we can grade your comics, and they have a list of like on the picture, all these like extremely rare comics that you're never going to see, like Amazing Fantasy, like 15, like all the ones that you're going to end up seeing that you never saw. The one that I never saw there was, obviously, I didn't see Action Comics #1, and I didn't see Detective Comics 27. But basically, those are the only two that I didn't see there. Everything else was there, and it was so fun walking through. It was because you can't afford to buy any of that stuff. It was basically like visiting a museum for free. So it was great. A comic book museum basically is what it was. It was so fun seeing that. Yeah.
Wow, man. Incredible Hulk #1, even at a 2.3, still goes for 11 G's. Whew. I don't have that kind of coin. You got to win the lottery to buy something like that, son. That, by the way. Jeez. But yeah, Saga #1, it's one of the more, for modern day, for today's
Right.
modern day comics, it's one of the more popular titles. And Brian K. Vaughan, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the biggest names in the industry going today. So way to go, Brian K. Vaughan. No problems with that. And I know a lot of people, friends of mine, who love the story series known as Saga, or comic series known as Saga. So there you go. 2 thumbs up.
Right.
The awesome tacular stuff. Now, I do want to let you know that this episode, or every episode, I should say, rather, of And I Quote, is indeed powered by our good friends over here at Poddex. Now, here's the good thing. Poddex are unique, and I do mean unique. Interview questions as well as episode starting prompts located within the palm of your very own hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or existing broadcaster, if you will, looking to grow your audience or even get more engagement, you're going to want to check out our good friends over there at poddex.com. Use the promo code Ryan10. That's RYAN10. That's Ryan10 for 10% off your first order. Do not miss out on that opportunity. So Poddex wants to know, what's the cheesiest, and I do mean cheesiest, movie, moment, or line that you can think of, Barney?
The cheesiest movie moment or line that I can think of is probably I'm just saying the first thing that pops in my head. First thing that pops in my head is the line from Step Brothers when he goes, "Did we just become best friends?" Like that line there. That was like, I think that was the first thing that pops because that is cheesy, and that the ending movie on there when he was singing that song, that was, yeah, that's a great cheesy line right there. I think that's got to be it. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. A little bit of John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell comedy film there, right there. Would you rather be the best player on what is known as a horrible team or the worst player on a great team?
Oh, definitely a worse player on the great team. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because you are feeling as though that you need to you have to build yourself up to be there. Where if you're the best player on a horrible team, then there's going to be some level of discontent that you're going to have towards the rest of your team. So, as someone that likes to always improve, I would never want to be the best at anything because then that feels as though that you've stopped learning, or stopped growing. Yeah.
Wow. Good. Fair points. Fair points. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One food for the rest of my life. Oh, that's easy. Okay, because this is the season for it now. The
Mhm.
white peaches. White peaches there's this, so right here that there's a farm stand that just sells white Pennsylvania peaches,
Oh,
and they are succulent. They just like melt, like it's just juicy. Like it's just, you eat those things and like, and plus the vitamin enrichment of it, plus the fiber. Like if you're gonna eat something for the rest of your life, I mean, I'm sure you end up having to have like vitamin deficiencies in certain aspects, but if I had to choose, it would have to be, man, those giant white peaches that just succulent, man. Yeah, that's it. That's right there. I'm in a white peach mood right now. Yeah.
if you mention the word peaches, I'm thinking of the scene in that little sitcom that only lasted 9 years and is probably the best one of all time. The Mackinac peaches, Jerry. The Mackinac peaches. Sorry, that's a line of Kramer from Seinfeld, if you don't know what I'm talking about, which is my favorite sitcom, and it's the #1 sitcom of all time. Hashtag those are the facts, not opinions. Anyone else who says otherwise, you're just fooling yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, all opinions are valid. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong either. It's just an opinion. But Poddex is curious about this one, though. If you had a personal mascot, what would it be?
It would be a lion. I already made it. That's my point. See, lion and dove. See, I've already made it. Yeah. Because it has to be a mascot, it'd have to be like a chibi lion with like wearing glasses,
Yeah.
with and then with maybe like a drawing table next to him or something like that. But yeah, it would have to be it.
There you go. There you go. And what would you say is the weirdest thing that you find attractive in a person outside of your significant other?
The weirdest thing I find attractive in a person
In
would
general.
be, in general, would probably be um, their eyes. Yeah. Well, that's not weird though. No, I got to
No.
think of something weird. All right. Elbows. Let me say elbows.
Okay.
That's weird, right?
Yeah. You want to go with that?
Yeah.
That's
I'll
fair.
go with elbows. Yeah.
Okay. Elbows. Weirdest
Yeah.
thing that you find attractive in a person? That was the question brought to you by our good friends over there at poddex.com. Goodness gracious. Well, that's a weird note to go with. But hey, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Barney Smith for being our guest on this episode of Van Dyke Quote. Barney, this has been educational with you being on the podcast. So thank you for being here. Where can the person who's watching or listening to this episode follow you on social media and keep up to date with everything that you got going on? What do you got?
StoryComic.com has all the links on there. It has you go there, right on the front there's going to be a link right to my Kickstarter. I also have hyperlinks to right on there with all my what is it, like my tweeting and my Instagramming. Also, I'm on Blue Sky. I'm also on Threads as well, on all those situations. And definitely all those links are on there. I have those hyperlinked also on my website at storycomic.com. You can't miss it. It's all right there in big blue and yellow. So it's perfect to see. Yeah.
It's a beautiful logo. I'm just kidding. But with me, thank you for being here, Barney Smith. Do greatly appreciate it. I will talk to you in just one moment. My name is Ryan of Nerdculture. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. All the links where you can follow Barney Smith and myself, as well as all the incredible other things that we're doing and our other social media channels, are located within the description of this episode of And I Quote. And also, I pointed this out earlier, we are this close to hitting 1,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. Once we do, we're going to throw a great big live celebration that's going to have returning guests, surprise guests. I think Barney Smith may want to make an appearance and give us more random tangents about Marvel Comics circa 1991. And if he shows up, great. That'd be wonderful. And also, we're going to have some special giveaways for you when we hit 1,000. So tell your friends about us, because they're going to tell their friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. You know how these things go. Also, new show is going to be dropping, Ahsoka's Weekly Mission. We're going to do spoiler-heavy thoughts and feelings and reviews of the latest episodes of the new series known as Ahsoka, which drops on Disney Plus this week. Our first episode is going to go live on Thursday, August the 24th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then after that, we have made the executive administrative decision to move Ahsoka's Weekly Mission to Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, starting in a few weeks. But for now, the premiere is going to drop on Thursday, August 24th, live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have some special guests with us. We are very excited to have them with us. We are excited to talk about Ahsoka with you. Now, warning, these will be spoiler heavy. So if you have yet to see the episodes, take our podcast, put it in your watch later list, and then come back and watch it after you've seen the episode, respectively. Also, one of the best properties, one of the most popular properties in civilization, turns 30 on Monday, August the 28th, and we are going to celebrate it in grand style. It's the Power Rangers 30th anniversary celebration. Yeah, that's right. I grew up in the 90s, and a lot of our guests grew up in the 90s too. We know what it was like to be there when those shows dropped. So join us. We're going to talk about anything, and I do mean anything and everything, celebration-wise, for Power Rangers. Favorite seasons, favorite characters, favorite moments, favorite toys, favorite action figures, favorite comic books, favorite graphic, all that stuff. It's all up for grabs Monday night, August 28th, 8 p.m. EST on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and I believe it's Twitter as well, at It's Nerd Culture. So make sure you're following us there. My goodness, so much to do, so much to see, so little time. But in the meantime, like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified when our videos go up. And remember, life is better when reading and supporting other independent content creators. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Sweet dreams they placed on me inside my mind. Chance my truth, twist the past, my memories are fading fast. Am I still missed? Who do you want me to be? Am I still missed?
In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
Good morning. Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.